All right. So yeah, with that said, Steven, what did you think of John's list of SmackDown commentators? I mean, with Michael Cole being one of your earliest memories of the show.
I thought it was a really good list, and I'm surprised just how many commentators SmackDown's actually had. And I mean, at the time when JBL started, I was really sort of high on JBL being sorry, the hear myself back then. So
Okay.
recording my audio, don't worry.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I like John's list too. Again, surprised at how many commentators actually were on the show, um, in a at least a semi regular fashion. Yeah, I would say to that though, maybe move JBL, who I now call Jibble, down a couple spots. I explained on last week's show, but I call him that because Simon Dean used to call him that when he'd get drunk and start picking fights with people in hotel rooms. Um, so yeah, Jibble,
Just leave
I'd
people
move him down
passport.
a couple spots, and Taz. Honestly, Taz is not. Um, how do I put this? The English language is in Taz might be Taz's greatest feud ever. However, he had great chemistry with Michael Cole, and
Yeah,
that was an incredible 1-2 punch. One of the greater commentary teams, I think, um, as a unit, I think ever you could make that argument. Um, I was just watching back uh, the Eddie Guerrero addiction promo, which I think we'll dig more into as we go along. But
yeah,
one of the reasons that was so great was because after the promo, Michael Cole delivered a money line where he said, "For Eddie Guerrero has a way out because no way out. He has a way out straight out of hell." And I just thought that it added so much. He was
yeah,
great, and I think
yeah,
when he's overproduced, he could be the most annoying announcer in the game. But
yeah,
when he's doing his own thing, like we saw in the UK tournament, we see in these overseas shows that they do, it's actually quite good. Still,
yeah,
he still got it.
yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the other thing about the SmackDown commentators. What I always thought was really good compared with Raw is that they never felt like they were. It didn't feel like Vince was like holding them as much. And I know it sounds strange, but like especially with Heyman in the 2000s, he had such a um like his own way of talking that it felt like Vince couldn't actually become part of like his personality, which is what I really liked. And also you've got Mick Foley as well, who was brilliant on commentary, and it was such a shame that Vince just berated him on commentary and then got rid of him, basically walked out. And now you've got Mauro Ranallo as well, who I did have briefly. I thought was fantastic as well. Obviously, from listening to him on New Japan on AXS, he was absolutely brilliant there. And then when he went on to become the play-by-play for SmackDown, he just added such more personality, a lot more of that like Michael Cole element, which I think I really enjoyed in the early days. And I think he brought that back. And then obviously he's come to NXT and now he's doing his own thing there. But I think that SmackDown's always had a really good, strong play-by-play colour um, sort of announced team, whereas I think Raw sometimes has had it a bit hit and miss. I'm not saying that SmackDown hasn't, but I feel like it's been a lot more consistent on SmackDown where it has on Raw. That was an enjoyable thing to listen to the commentary.
Well, Raw had it very easy for a long time with JR and the King. I think they even called a few of the early Smackdowns as well. After that, they brought back the 3-man booth that you'd see in the '80s, and I'm still not a big fan of that. But
Yeah,
it's probably a rant for another day. I think. But no, absolutely. Like especially as a kid, like the commentary matters so much. Um, so that's why Michael Cole and Taz. I would say they are the 1A to JR and the Kings won,
Yeah,
if that makes sense. They worked
yeah,
really well together. And like I
yeah.
said, Taz, he doesn't do English well. He, if you listen to his podcast, he's just all over the place. But for some reason, he bounced off Michael Cole better than anybody could have ever imagined.
They just complement each other, didn't they? They were just, you got straight laced Michael, and then you've got Taz, who he was more kind of, a little bit more wacky. But when you put them together, sometimes it just works, and for certain, and just added to the identity of SmackDown with them being, the voices of it. I felt that when Taz won as well, they lost a huge part of SmackDown because then they became ECW choice titles. It didn't mesh in the same way as it had with Michael Cole, which I think was really sad because then again SmackDown was then trying to look for that content, and thank God JBL was able to come and be able to bring what Taz had brought in, that colour element, but he also brought in his own element because I think, and you may be able to correct me on this or not, but No Way Out 2007, I think it was said that Michael Cole actually lost his voice for the event, and then as it came to the main event, JBL called the main event the Shawn Michaels, John Cena, Undertaker, Batista main event solo because Michael Cole just wasn't able to talk anymore. And for him to be able to do that solo in such a short period of time on SmackDown and pay-per-view, and then became like the identity of it as well, I think really added to the product at the time. But I mean, you can correct that if I'm incorrect. That's just what I heard. And
Okay. Yeah. Well said. And I think it's telling that when Taz went to TNA. Now, number one, I kind of had an idea like that he just wasn't that great. He just wasn't that great of an announcer. Period. Because I thought he'd work great with Joey Styles, and it wasn't the same with Michael Cole. And then he goes to TNA, and he was just atrocious. Um, but TNA itself was atrocious. So um, it wasn't. I mean, it looked like a great place for him to hitch his wagon at the time, but it just wasn't. But bouncing off of the commentary, yeah, for me, earliest memories, obviously the fist, right?
yeah,
That iconic SmackDown stage that I
yeah,
really hope they bring back for this show coming up this week. Um,
yeah.
I'm not holding my breath, but I think that'd be pretty cool.
I
And
like the
yeah,
Ovaltron at the bottom. You
yeah,
can, yeah, I was going to say I'd like the Ovaltron at the bottom and the fist above the Ovaltron. I think that would be a really cool, or the Ovaltron at the side. I think that would be a really cool kind of throwback to how it used to be. Would be really cool.
yeah, it would. I remember back in the old video games, you could actually climb up on top of the fist and jump off of it.
Yeah, perhaps that frog spots from LBB on Eddie Guerrero onto whoever was at the bottom. But by the time that 10, you'd end up falling over, and then you end up doing a spinneroonie at the bottom, which was all the falling motion when you almost died. You lose all your energy. So yes, that was always really good. And it never happened. Jeff Hardy never did it. Unfortunately, he did it on Raw, but he didn't do it on SmackDown. So
It wasn't
it was
really on
always
SmackDown that much though. Um,
no, that's a shame.
and for a lot of that time, he was just out of the company.
Yeah,
Um,
another story for another time.
yeah, but for me, I think early SmackDown memories. It's the first episode I ever watched. It was, um, they. I think it was a show or two for the Great American Bash '04, and John Cena fought the Undertaker in the main event. Now, I'd heard a lot of this Undertaker from kids in school. He's the Undertaker. He's the guy, right? But then you have this John Cena, who I knew nothing of him as a heel. He had recently turned babyface at this point in time,
Yeah,
but I see this guy, and I'm just like, wow, what bravery to stand up to the Undertaker like that and push him to the limit. I'm gonna root for that guy. And Eddie Guerrero caught my attention on that show as well,
yeah,
and I consider him to be the arguably the greatest of all time. Um, and I think that he has the claim to definitely the best promo in the semi-modern era. I would say, it maybe of all time. I would put it there.
Yeah,
And then he cut that promo before I started watching, so it wasn't until many years later that I got to see that for the first time. But it was just incredible, and I think Brock
yeah.
did a great job. Have you seen the segment?
I have, yeah. I actually watched that in the UK when it was aired. Um, like, more photos shown like, after it had been taped, and I remember that particular promo and their feud. And I thought it was just, like you said, astounding. I thought the whole feud and the way it was built and the way Brock just put Eddie higher, I think, as well, because Eddie was already at the peak, but he was able to take him that step further. And Eddie's passion and his emotion and his charisma was just on fire in 2004. And like you said in the roundtable, you can just see you can just see the passion. You can just see that this is his moment and his time. And he's gonna, make it. And he's worked it out for this one particular moment, and his main event, in the car pass when it comes up. And it was just a brilliant piece of just, TV wrestling, TV wrestling promo, building up a pay-per-view main event. It was just, fantastic. I didn't choose it as my moment, but you can't not deny that it is probably one of the greatest moments in SmackDown history.
There's a lot of moments.
That's the problem. There's just so many brilliant moments in SmackDown history. It's so hard. I just chose the ring break just because that's what I was into wrestling around that point, watching it full time. I never expected to ever see anything like that, and to this day, it's still the top. Like I said, it would normally happen on pay per view, but it happened on TV, which are even more exciting. But yeah, the Eddie Guerrero promo stands up there with King Dewey at times. CM Punk shoot promo. It's up there, definitely.
Yeah, I would say that it was. And I'm gonna jump around with some thoughts here. I was walking to work today. I was thinking about that promo, and I was like, it's like hard times for the Attitude Era.
Yeah,
Where the drugs and alcohol and like that dark side of the business is now playing out on TV. Um,
yeah,
it was that really. It was a great underdog promo, and like I was saying before, I think Brock teed it up extremely well for him
yeah,
because he had a great line before Eddie started talking, where he said something to the effect of, "Hope you're like addicted to losing or something like that," and then Eddie just goes in, starts off strong, but then there's a moment where you can kind of see him like go from Eddie Guerrero the character to Eddie Guerrero the man,
yeah,
and that kind of came through the promo, and then he ends it beautifully, um, by saying that he and Brock what they have in common is that they both love to be in the ring, but the
yeah,
difference is that Eddie's an addict, and he will go to any length, and he will step on it, he will step on anyone and push anyone out of the way to get his high, at No Way Out, and that was just it was so perfect, and you could tell with the crowd, they reacted, perfectly, and then Michael Cole at the end, putting the exclamation point. It was,
yeah,
that's a 10. It's a 10 segment. Um,
definitely.
but I'll tell you what. Talking about the Brock Lesnar Big Show ring break angle. I remember when SmackDown turned 5, and again, this was shortly after I started watching. But they used to have the magazines at Barnes and Noble and Borders, and
Yeah,
we picked up the SmackDown 5th anniversary one, and you could read about different stuff in there, like the Benoit Jericho tag title win,
yeah,
and Rey Mysterio feuding with Matt Hardy, but
yeah,
but the number one like moment in there that they detailed was at that time the Brock Lesnar Big Show ring break.
yeah,
And I'll tell you another thing. I was years ago, there was slash is, I think it still exists, a site called Justin.tv, and I actually found during the summer months back when I was in high school, I found a link that was continuously playing all things WWE through time, kind of like the WWE Network now, except
Yeah.
it was just entirely chronological.
Yeah.
So you'd have a Raw episode, SmackDown, and they would alternate, and then they'd play the
Yeah.
pay-per-view when the time came. Um, so I remember crossing that episode in that chronological order, and it definitely struck it stood out big time.
Yeah.
It hadn't really been done before. It was a completely creative and unique idea that
Yeah.
and the two right guys for it too.
Yeah.
What's the comparison? I think it's irresistible force meets a movable object.
Probably.
When you put the irresistible force in the ring with the immovable object, the ring gives out.
Yeah.
That was the story there. Yeah, those are all great moments. A lot of good comedy on SmackDown through the years
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Whether it was Kurt Angle and that midget attack, or him battle rapping John Cena, or him doing
Yeah.
him singing Shawn Michaels theme song.
Yeah. One of my favorite comedy moments was when Eddie Guerrero was giving a picture of the burrito, um, and they got the bit like what Austin had done in the studio. He got the sewage truck, and that was still makes me out of laughter. There was just something about that was so funny, and I think there was one other particular moment what did really make me laugh. And I think it was when Kurt Angle had the wig on the in the Edge feud.
Where he
during
had
the 2000.
headgear.
Yeah, and just when they were in the cage match, I think it was in the cage match, and then it got taken off. I think it was that match. But yeah, it was Kurt Angle's brilliant at comedy. I think Edge was my MVP. But in terms of comedy, as well as being like a full package, Angle just so funny. Like you said with those little moments, they just it's very witty, which is what I like about him. And he's very quick off the mark, which is really kind of refreshing in wrestling as well, because sometimes it's really staged, but it always feels really natural. So they were the two favourite funny moments I've seen in SmackDown history.
That was an interesting time too, because at that point, Kurt, for most of his initial run on the main roster, was basically this goofball that could also kick your ass, right?
Yeah.
He always was that guy, but then you started to see him better mix in the comedy in the right spots more. It wasn't just that was his. It was all there was to know of his character. It became just one component to his character, and I think that was where he really started to take the bull by the horns in terms of developing the Kurt Angle persona that we're all most familiar with.
Yeah. I mean, it's SmackDown as well was where Kurt was able to come into his own. I think because Raw throughout the early 2000s was so filled with talent. I think it was when he actually got to SmackDown he could really do his own thing and show just what he was able to do as a talent. And I think he became, or what was interesting watching him at that time was that he was able to, like you just said, switch so comfortably into different roles, and he was able to, on top of that, mix them up as well. So he was able to be funny, but then he was able to, in SmackDown 6, he was able to be really funny. But then when it was with Benoit in the tag team, there was other layers into it what added into the seriousness of his persona and his matches, which I think really led to the sort of the identity of SmackDown, and that there's something else lower than just the surface kind of sort of feuds. There was also these layers and elements which Heyman brought in at the time, which I think really, from his ECW days, which I think really sort of played into the way the product was presented. So yeah, and you know, Kurt was just one of a kind at that point. That's why I became such a huge fan of SmackDown, because of like I said in the last podcast, SmackDown 6 all the way, 2002, just and 2000, well, summer 2002 to sort of April 2004, like SmackDown continuing, like repeated. I could just watch the from this day forward on repeat and not want to watch anything else wrestling or even Ring of Honor. I just think that it was just amazing. Yeah, and Kurt's a huge part of it.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the SmackDown 6 for a second here. So, for those who don't know, the SmackDown 6 was a group of 6 wrestlers on SmackDown that would interchangeably work different matches and would have feuds with each other like concurrently, and you could put them in any combination on the card, and it would be dynamite for that whole year. And it was Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Chavo Guerrero, Edge, and Rey Mysterio. And I don't know. Listen, there's a lot of different things that you hear about what Paul Heyman's true involvement was on that SmackDown era. You know, you'll hear that he was the head writer. But then Bruce Pritchard came out with a podcast about a year ago saying that no, Paul's influence was not as great as people think. However, if you look at the old ECW stuff and you look at this era of SmackDown, there are tons of similarities where you could directly point to angles and just the creative philosophy and say Paul Heyman. But I don't know how it came to be that all 6 of these guys ended up on SmackDown. But I think for Paul's perspective, it was a thing at the time where you had 2 writing staffs for each show, and they were trying to breed this competitive environment where, can you top this? And that is what really, I think, contributed to making WWE so exciting in that era. But I think Paul's thought was, Raw's got all the big names. We do have Kurt Angle, but really just give me 6 of the top 8 or 9 workers in the company at this point, and we will make magic, and I will get the most out of them, personality wise, because from all of them did have personality. It was just really about finding how to bring it out. Even Benoit was incredibly entertaining on the microphone at this time, and having Kurt Angle to bounce off of, I think, helped him. But if you think about it, of like the 8 or 9 top workers in the company, like you have a SmackDown 6 at that point, then you have Shawn Michaels, RVD, and probably Jericho, probably too. But then you just have these other 6 guys that maybe for a time weren't as over as like the Triple H's and the Austins and all these guys on Raw. But what you do have is 6 guys that can go, and if you put them in the right spots, the fans will see that, and they will get over. Maybe not the way that WWE likes to formulaically get guys over, but they will get over. They'll be stars, and SmackDown ratings will be very good because of it.
Yeah, I mean, it also, the SmackDown, like I said, I just love the SmackDown 6. I thought it was a fantastic concept. If you watch a lot of Japanese wrestling as well, it was that kind of thing where you have your core, 6 core. So like in Japan, it's obviously your mum anyway. It's Okada, Tanahashi, Naito. You could possibly put Jay in there, and possibly Suzuki. But then you 6 guys who can do a lot of different things. And it was like in SmackDown at that point, you had your 6 core who then could not only wrestle. I mean, I wrote an article about years ago for another website, but you have singles matches, tag team matches, triple threats, 6, fatal four ways, and all these interesting combinations of matches as well. So 203 falls, triple threat eliminations, so 3 ounces, elimination, fatal four ways. It was a way for them to show their wrestling ability in a different way. So it was like the wrestling for the first time in years was to the forefront. Although they did have personalities, it was through their individual work styles and through their individual, like I said, intertwining feuds. And also, what I loved about the SmackDown 6 was because I used to watch WCW back in the day, was that I saw Guerrero and Rey Mysterio feuding in WCW, and then you see them feuding again in WWE, but in a different context. Similarly, you'd see, Benoit and Guerrero in WCW, and then you see them again in the SmackDown 6, and it was just the matches themselves. I think what I loved about it was just the instant chemistry. What these people, these 6 wrestlers had was just like uncanny. I mean, the opener to, although it wasn't on TV, but the opener to the SummerSlam 2002 pay-per-view between Rey Mysterio and Kurt Angle, they'd never wrestled. From what I know, that's the first time they ever faced each other.
Mm-hmm.
Two of the most important parts of the SmackDown 6. Their match was just off the charts, how good they were. And I mean, then later on throughout the year, you add in the element of Edge, and then you add in historic tag team matches, which, again, the kind of innovation of moves, the depth of the feud, and the way it was all intertwined into each other, it was all very, very, it was all very unique, and it was very, like you were saying, thought out, and you can tell it was ECW influenced because there was a lot of, the intertwining like what him did in ECW and how it played into pay-per-views. And actually, what I loved as well is that you didn't necessarily have to watch a pay-per-view to have a great match as well. Is a lot of the time the greatest matches were actually on TV, and that the pay-per-view matches were actually kind of a step lower than the TV matches a lot of the time, which is what I loved as well, because obviously I didn't get back the pay-per-views, so I watched the TV, and it was just fantastic.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I couldn't buy all the pay-per-views. Of course, I didn't really start watching till after this era, but in watching through it, it really was a fascinating time. You'd have a lot of feuds that would be put on hold on the back burner for a couple weeks, and then would get revisited when the time was right. And that's just really good writing. You have to have really good writing in order to pull that off effectively. You don't see that ever. Not just in WWE, but in most wrestling these days. But I think it's the one thing. That era of SmackDown did not insult the intelligence of the fans one iota. And they gave people what they wanted. Everybody loved the SmackDown 6. Eddie, was, this is where we really began to see like what he could do. Really give him the ball. Benoit, you got to see a different side of his personality. Angle, rose to a new level in working with guys like Benoit that were just, and Eddie, that were just so just naturals, just the greatest pound for pound in the ring ever. So that elevated Angle, who was, comparatively inexperienced but still very talented. And then you had Mysterio, who just kind of came in hot. Like really came in hot. You watch that SummerSlam Kurt Angle match; they don't waste any time. They and that was their first meeting. They would go on at better matches, but first impressions are everything, and I think one of the reasons why Ray had such staying power in WWE was because his first impression was so fucking strong. And then you had Chavo, and Chavo had his limitations. One, he's not Eddie, but Eddie's one of the greatest ever. So we can't hold him to that standard, but excellent in the ring, nonetheless. And then you have Edge. Edge was on the verge at this time of becoming the next breakout star, but if he continued that on that trajectory, now he'd become a little bit stale right before he got hurt, and maybe a heel turn was due anyway. But
Yeah.
um, in the ring, working with these guys every week, he improved as much as anybody, and it
Yeah.
really set him up later in his career for the
Yeah.
things he would go on to do as a radar superstar. But I just wonder, like, Edge was always pegged for great things, but had he not gotten hurt, he would have continued on that trajectory, and maybe there is no radar superstar, and maybe he does become a star, but not to the level of magnitude where he becomes the top heel.
Yeah.
It's interesting with him, but
Yeah.
but yeah, they all kind of brought something different, and it was just really exciting to see.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it didn't insult any fans' intelligence, and it was such a great contrast to what we'd seen of the Attitude Era, where the wrestling was taking was at the front of it and was taking was the focal point, and it was actual actual wrestling, what was competitive. You could tell that these people were wanting to show what they could do. And I think what I loved as well was, although it's not the best match what took place, one of my favourite memories at the time was the, I just mentioned it earlier, was this three-wheel dance at Madison Square Garden, where, although it was at Summer Survivor Series 2002, where the feud over the tag titles and the tournament for the belts kind of came to a conclusion in Madison Square Garden, and that image of seeing all six of them together in the ring. And although it's not the best match between them, because they all look different, but that image of them all together in MSG, and just how the crowd reacted, I think was fantastic. And just like we were saying about Edge, him and Eddie Guerrero again had just been wrestling earlier in the year, but then had an amazing no DQ match on SmackDown in September, which was again just phenomenal. I mean, Eddie had been on the independence because he got fired, and then he came back, and that was when the fire hit was lit in, and he's like, I'm going to show these people what I can do, how I'm going to do it, and he was just on another level, and even Edge hinted that everyone learned so much from Guerrero, but you can see a lot of Eddie Guerrero and Edge, I think, in the way that he held himself and the way that he developed through SmackDown 6, and I think that it showed a lot as well that Eddie, that you could see with Eddie and Benoit especially, because they were like the ring generals, how they then influenced the rest of the people. Well, you could say Ray as well, but mainly Eddie and Chris, how they influenced the other competitors, and it was just a treat to watch. It was just a fantastic. I mean, if you watched it at the time, it's just up there at the pinnacle, I think, for anybody. And I feel very privileged as a wrestling fan to have watched it, and it's one of my, favourite memories of, anything with the whole industry. So yeah.
And it doesn't even include all the other great members of the SmackDown roster at that time. Remember, you still had the Big Show and Brock Lesnar, and you had the Undertaker, who was unleashed on SmackDown for like in 2001 maybe, and he was just there for good, pretty much for the rest of his career. Especially if you're like me and you want to pretend like his last couple years are not canon to the plot, because they've been bad. And don't even get me started on that Triple H match at Super Showdown. But
I didn't watch it. Well, it's midnight here now, so
I know you didn't. It's cool. I didn't watch it either. No, fuck that. I was watching McGregor and Khabib instead.
Yeah, I think that probably was a better option of the two.
Better pro wrestling, that's for sure.
Yeah. But again, the compliment in a roster was just brilliant as well. I mean, that Brock Lesnar and Undertaker feud from 2002 was for me so much better than the later feud. And you can find it on YouTube. There was a stare down between the Undertaker and backstage between the Undertaker and then Brock Lesnar with the belt on the table, and Paul Heyman was behind Brock Lesnar. It was like a darkened sort of like locker room, and it was just like, you know, face to face kind of, you know, like confrontation. So there was, but they were, you know, talking about themselves. And even those little backstage segments where people who necessarily wouldn't deliver great promos, you can see the influence of Heyman, especially on Brock at that point, who was so young, so green still. He just got so much out of him. And their feud again was just really, it was just you can see how much Undertaker saw Brock as well, you know, and just slaughter muckers what they had at the time, and just, you know, I mean, Big Show was huge, and the fact that Brock Lesnar was able to lift Big Show for one thing was just incredible. But the fact that, you know, Big Show was even able to do the things he was able to do, and just chokeslam itself due to how big he looked absolutely devastating. But they just had a brilliant roster on SmackDown, and compared with Raw, you know, if you put them side by side, for me, you know, Raw, even now, like, Raw just doesn't, you know, probably because of that time, you know, I would still choose SmackDown any day, because I know that Andre made that's a nostalgia thing. I just feel that at the time, anyway, you know, I don't think you can definitely compare the two. And if you do, then I think you've got to have a really strong argument to be able to compare the SmackDown 6 to bloody Dick and bloody, you know, because just like Goldust and, no disrespect to Goldust and Booker T, but they ain't no engineering steel or any day. It just doesn't compare, you know, for me. But yeah, so that roster throughout SmackDown history, just fantastic, you know, brilliant talent.
Who did you say in the round table was your SmackDown MVP?
It was Kurt Angle, I actually said, which was a difficult decision, but I think Kurt, because like I said, I used to go to friends' houses. Kurt was on SmackDown, so I was Kurt in the end of his career. 2002, obviously, yeah, peak. 2003 again. I think he actually had a better 2003 than 2002, but I feel 2002 had a better foundation for 2003, kind of tail off a little bit of 2003. 2004, 2005 went up to Raw, and then 2006 he came back. And the start of 2006 on SmackDown, Angle was brilliant. Again, he had the home shield. He was just a lot more. You could just see the header. You could just see the intensity. You could just, you know, see the amateur coming out of him. And I really, as a fan as well, like, really, because I loved all that. I just loved that ruthless aggression in him. And I think it was something he held back for a long time, but I think he just became unleashed. So for me, he was my MVP. Because who did you choose? Was it?
I picked Rey Mysterio.
Yeah.
And I did that because, you know, he also kind of helped spearhead that cruiserweight division. So he was wrestling every week, and so was Kurt. But I almost went with Kurt. If you prefer Kurt's funny angles and like all like the memorable stuff he's done over the years, and that's probably the better choice. But Ray was in his fair share of stuff too. The feud with Eddie, feud with Kurt, feud with Batista much later on, and being able to make that look good.
CM Punk
feuding with Chavo, he and Chavo always worked incredibly together.
Yeah, Jericho, Punk.
Oh yeah, yeah. Punk was, he and Punk just had it, and Ray had that with a lot of guys. There were a medium-sized like handful, I would say, of guys that you'd put in the ring with Rey Mysterio, and it would just be magic. Kurt Angle was one of them. Eddie was another. Chavo, Jericho, and Punk. They all, you know, adapted to him so well.
I put Del Rio in there as well, believe it or not. I thought, and John Morrison, although he didn't wrestle them much. Demonstrated with them when he did wrestle them was, especially there was one particular match between Morrison and Mysterio for the IC title in 2009. and that was again just, I think, about 20 minutes. It was the main event, and that was a throwback to that year of the 2002 SmackDown 6 period, and they were innovative and they were, given time, and they just put the IC title, back to where it should be, where it hadn't been for a long time. And yeah, so that raised one of them, I just chose it because of my reasons there. But yeah, definitely Rey Mysterio was one of my choices. I don't think Angle I chosen.
Yeah, I remember that. Interesting though, like, yeah, very interesting. Moving on. So John Cena then comes to SmackDown in 2002, and then that's just another guy that Paul Heyman looks at and says, we're gonna crush this guy into a diamond by just putting him in the ring with like all of our studs." So what happens is, going looking in the future a little bit, Cena develops this rap persona. He has a lot of memorable moments himself. He got to slap Stephanie McMahon in the ass. He what else did he do? Countless battle raps with guys like the Big Show and Angle and the funny stuff, and then some memorable matches too, like working Brock Lesnar at Backlash.
Yeah.
And
we're all with Eddie.
Yeah, Eddie, the street fight with Eddie.
Yeah.
It was all good stuff, and then he kind of turned a corner when he turned face. It was the right time to do it, and around that time, so what happens with this SmackDown 6 is everybody becomes so freaking over that Raw's got to like start to get him. So Benoit became so over from his feud with Angle that he won the Royal Rumble in 2004, and he was off to Raw, and that was kind of that. So they needed to build up and create new baby faces, and it was around this time that Cena it was actually shortly before this. I think they turned him by creating an issue with him and Paul Heyman, which was a great way to turn him. You want to turn a guy, put the heel with the most heat against him, and you'll do just that.
Yeah.
So he the weeks stemming off of that just kind of became Cena overcoming Paul Heyman's odds, basically.
Yeah.
And it was easy, it was simple, it was to the point, and it was good. And he faces the Big Show at WrestleMania. You got that big photo op where he's giving him the FU, and he wins the United States champion. Cena, by the way, is, in my opinion, the greatest United States champion of all time.
Yeah, I think
the belt.
Sure.
He elevated the belt, and the belt elevated him both simultaneously. It was perfect. And then he did the open challenge years later, and kind of brought things back full circle.
Yeah, and you love John Cena. I remember when he debuted against Kurt Angle with almost 10-minute draw, which I thought brilliant. And then his brief, he was kind of I remember when he kind of started developing the rap character, and then because he didn't wrestle for a little bit, but when he did, it was kind of his style kind of changed. It was a bit more. It wasn't as fluid as what it had been. But then when it came to 2003 and he kind of become fully heel, he was a brilliant heel, and I just wish that they would have turned him heel again at some point, because he was just great at all the snarky chicken shit things, but it was also great at the really kind of severe sort of beatdowns and stuff. He was brilliant at all. And when he did turn, he was really charismatic as well. He was a bit like Razor Ramon, in that it was the bad guy that everyone really, really liked, especially like sort of 10, sort of like the Eminem. He was part of the zeitgeist, Eminem, G Unit, that kind of music. So he was, that time was into that, and the chains, the basketball jerseys, the look, and he had such a swagger to him. And like Razor, he just oozed confidence, and he just people loved it, and then to see him have, and then people always say, "Oh, John Cena can't wrestle." You look at him back in 2003; he had brilliant matches, and they're like, with people, he played, it takes two to tango. He can, and in 2003 especially, he was wrestling The Undertaker, good people, but still, like people said it had been carried, but he wasn't. The Undertaker, Angle, Benoit, Eddie, like I said, a great feud with it, and he just had such a. He was. I was really disappointed when he was traded up to Raw. I can see why they did it. They had to do it.
Had to do
But
it.
at the same time, I wish he'd have stayed because I just loved him on SmackDown, and I loved him. He returned, I think, in 2007, just before no pay-per-view, which I spoke about earlier. And he mentioned in his promo, which was a great promo, he said about the fist. And he pointed at the fist because it was still there just before it disappeared. And then, and it was just, I always felt like John Cena's home was really SmackDown, and as far as on loan to Raw. And I know that they took him there to build him up even more, but I just felt like he was always a SmackDown guy in his heart. I think I possibly have heard him say that, but because he was taken to Raw, he had to adapt to their style and stuff. And I think he was fitting with Raw more. It's always a SmackDown guy to me in my heart. Always has been, I think he was will be.
I couldn't agree more with that. He was a SmackDown guy, and I think that if he spent more time on SmackDown over the years and had a more memorable second run on the show, he could be the SmackDown MVP for sure. Because in the roundtable, I mentioned how marketable SmackDown was. Raw was Raw, but SmackDown, after a certain point, had this like edge to it, and John Cena was at the forefront of that.
Yeah.
His freestyle lyrics, none of which, by the way, were safe for work by any stretch of the imagination. Calling dudes like homos in his raps, and it was it's stuff that depending on who you talk to might not age well, but it's like, ooh, he burned him. He took him to the woodshed with that line. But at the same time, when they turned him, I mean, of course, when they switched him to Raw, you had to do it because you had two very personal top feuds on both Raw and SmackDown, and they were both coming to an end at around the same time, and it was just time for a change. So the antithesis to Cena was Jibble. JBL came into his own in early 04 to that summer where he wins the WWE Championship quite quickly. What were some of your memories of JBL as the WWE champion?
I hated his run. His matches sucked, and he still do suck. As a character, I thought it was fantastic. I keep saying fantastic a lot. I don't know why it was. Perhaps it's just because it's fantastic. Who knows? But JBL, I remember when he actually won Ron Simmons, Farouk, and him. But there was a segment backstage on SmackDown where he kind of he left the team, and then he came out the next week and he had a suit on and like shot on. It was like Wally shot Aaron Stetson, and I was like, what's going on here? And he had always been like a kind of like smart enough, and then all of a sudden he became the kind of arrogant businessman. And that feud with Eddie Guerrero, it was very, very personal. It was very, you can tell that they'd got on with each other backstage as well, because things they knew about each other and the little kind of things you read between the lines were really fascinating. And you can see that Eddie Guerrero wanted that big new antagonist, and because Brock obviously got the big bull, he left to try and conquer the NFL. That didn't work out, did it? So we don't know about that. But they needed another bully. Big Show kind of, he was not what he was. So an Undertaker obviously was babyface, and although it would have been fantastic to see him and Eddie Guerrero face each other, he was babyface as well, so they needed that heel. And JBL was just that brilliant Ted DiBiase, $1 million man heel who just delivered these really scathing promos. He was really, just vicious on the mic. I mean, he's a bully. He'll deny it. He was a bully, and you can see that in his, his matches. 2004, though, later on, probably because of JBL's run, and probably because at the time the roster had been, sacked by the. We're going to get into this later on, but the roster had been sacked by the draft lottery. It wasn't what it was. But in the early part of JBL's run, he was just on fire. It was just so refreshing to see him in a different persona. And I think it allowed him the opportunity to get out of the kind of Texas cowboy sort of, persona, which had become quite stale. And it was a new way for him to show his personality and what he could do. And I think he was a really integral part to SmackDown. And, at that particular point, I think if they hadn't have had JBL, I don't know who would have stepped up to be that antagonist to Guerrero, because thankfully JBL just took it with both arms and just ran with it. And we all know, obviously, Judgment Day 2004, that main event, which even to this day is probably the most. I mean, they talk about the moves to get online. I've never seen a sporting event or otherwise, but even like medical, something so bloody and as vicious and as gory as a particular match. And JBL just, they were just made for each other. They were brilliant, antagonist and protagonist. But later on, JBL just became very irritating. He just became, for me, became irritating. But at the start, he was brilliant.
Yeah, I remember being in school at the time and just waking up every day to find out JBL lost the championship, and and every day he'd still be the champion. He just annoyed me to no end. I hated JBL. I hated him because he was just, when push came to shove, he was just this fat guy with a lot of money, with the title, and thought that he could bully people around because he was, bigger than a lot of his opponents. And he threw a really hard clothesline too.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, that just speaks to how great the character really was. Yeah.
The other thing, I didn't really have in it. I felt, although it was like a way to get some of the people up in the company, I felt that JBL didn't really need a lot of extra kind of like their equivalent of Evolution on SmackDown. I felt it wasn't needed. I felt JBL was strong enough on his own. I felt like giving a platform to the Bashams and made it in like okay, had it been a different time. But I feel that JBL just was fine as he was. I think that he just didn't need extra, like, faction there, especially in Evolution and Raw. Just like it was too kind of like trying to mirror each other, and I just felt like it lost something. But yeah, JBL was just fantastic heel. We all hated him, which is what he was meant to do. So it was great. It was a great throwback time. It was in the 80s, in the 90s, what had been lost. We all wanted him to lose that title, which is just what you want a heel champion to do. You want them to lose the title, but they never do. So that's the great thing, that you just want them to lose it. But JBL just again another. I mean, just could be another MVP for SmackDown. I imagine not being so bad. That's the other thing. But yeah, JBL, great heel.
Actually, I was wondering if we could actually like pause this right now. I'm like really tired from my trip still, and I'm just like like losing my mind a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
So I mean, and that allows us to go for more time too. So we could like pick this up like Saturday or Sunday if you have time.
yeah, yeah. Cool. Yeah, nice one.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool, great. Well then, in that